this war is not just a one-sided war. Again, we should recognize NATO's role in creating this conflict in Ukraine after the US-backed coup created a civil war. And that civil war between 2014 and the beginning of this year, before a single troop from Russia entered Ukraine, in the 8 years of this US-fueled civil war in Ukraine, 14,000 Ukrainians died. The United Nations Human Rights Office found that 81.4% of civilian casualties in that civil war in Ukraine in the past 4 years were in the Donbass, the eastern region of Ukraine. That is, over 4/5 of civilian casualties were Russian-speaking Ukrainian civilians in the eastern region that were killed by the Ukrainian government and paramilitary groups backed by the West. That doesn't mean that we should support the Russian invasion, but we should recognize that this war was started by the U.S. and NATO, and taking the position of only condemning the Russian invasion but not condemning the U.S. and NATO for starting the war is not the anti-war position. NATO is not innocent. NATO, for its entire history, has been an offensive, warmongering alliance. NATO, when it was founded in 1949, included the fascist dictatorship of Portugal as one of the founding members. It has nothing to do with democracy. Throughout the First Cold War, NATO supported former Nazis and former Nazi collaborators in Operation Paperclip and Operation Gladio. NATO has been linked to terrorist attacks against leftists inside Europe, including in Italy, especially in the years of lead. NATO carried out a regime change war that destroyed the country of Yugoslavia. NATO also was deeply involved in Afghanistan. The U.S. invasion of Afghanistan for 20 years, the military occupation was a joint U.S.-NATO occupation. And then, of course, NATO destroyed Libya, the most prosperous country in Africa. And 11 years after the 2011 NATO war that destroyed Libya, there still is no central government in Libya. There are open-air slave markets for sub-Saharan African refugees. So anyone in the U.S. who has a progressive bone in their body, the number one demand I think that we need to have right now is abolish NATO.